Springfield's Talk 104.1 and a hello, good day. Good Monday, everyone. Let's get the old TV rolling here. The media is up in arms. They've spent the weekend being up in arms over the fact that there was a red carpet for Putin to walk on. Um, the media has just become such a farce. It has become such an absolute joke. To even consider them serious any longer is a waste of time. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, hitting a couple of the programs on Sunday, and he does a really, in my opinion, good job of just calling the stupidity out on some of this stuff. We'll play that audio and also James Comey. Did you see the James Comey post that he did? James Comey, he's weird. This guy, he is an oddball. He made a 5-minute video post. I'm not sure what platform it was on. And I grabbed some of the audio, but it's the sort of thing that if you didn't know who this person was, you would think that he was some sort of psychotic creep. He goes on and on about Taylor Swift and being a Swift. He
I
sounds
saw this.
he sounds like a weird pervert.
It was
It's
like
odd.
6-7 minute video, something like
Yeah,
that.
it was quite.
Just
Yeah, I
went
think
on and
almost.
on.
Yeah, and when I say creepy weirdo, he does not like talking about her in any sort of sexual way, but it's just weird. I edited a couple of clips out of the full 5 minutes because 5 minutes or 6 minutes is a really long time to listen to him go on and on, and he like ties. It's essentially the theme of it is Taylor Swift is his inspiration in a Trump world where every single day we all wake up and we are all humiliated by Donald Trump, and we just have such a difficult time dealing with bullies, and his inspiration comes from Taylor Swift. And the way that he talks, it sounds, it's just so creepy. So we'll play that coming up a little bit later in the program as well. Some of these people, Mike Pence was on CNN State of the Union criticizing the way that Donald Trump deals with these world leaders, saying that when it came to Putin, Trump is using a velvet glove when he instead needs to use a hammer, as if Mike Pence has somehow demonstrated how it is in negotiations and as a world leader how to deal with these people. Trump, he's 5 or 6 peace deals between these different countries. The audacity of these people. I mean, okay, Pence, fine. We know why Mike Pence, as Trump's former vice president, gets invited to come on these shows, because he's going to criticize Donald Trump. But how do you criticize Donald Trump's approach when he has in the past several months, since he was sworn in, crafted all these different peace deals between countries, some of which have been battling it out for decades. And just to then go on national television and act like Trump doesn't know what he's doing. His whole approach is just wrong. But that isn't uncommon with the elites. Results don't actually matter. That's not what matters. It's the process. It's how good do you look? What sort of vibe do you give off? That's what ultimately matters in the end. And Trump, for him, results are what matters. And this is why he approaches Putin the way that he approaches Putin, the way he approaches Zelensky, the way that he deals with everyone. It is with that ultimate goal in mind. And if that means having Putin come to the United States and rolling out the red carpet, then so be it. Plus, it gives the media something to cry over. Also, they continue to, over the weekend, accuse Trump of being a dictator for making Washington, D.C. safer. There are numerous postings from average citizens. There's one that's gone somewhat viral, and it's a woman of color at night in D.C. filming herself because she's at an intersection with her window down. and how wonderful it is to be able to do that and not have to worry about being carjacked, not having to worry about being shot. That is a real result. And here is a person that, if you're going to look at her demographically, the left claims they care so much about women, one, and then women of color. And how sad, in the nation's capital, here is a woman who, for the first time, feels safe rolling her window down at an intersection, which is at the same time a demonstration that the media and the Democrats claiming that there's no real crime problem in D.C. I mean, sure, there may be some crime, but it's not nearly as bad as he makes it sound. In fact, there was a discussion, we'll play this audio also during the show, CNN, I believe it was, and discussing just how horrible it is that Donald Trump is lying to people about there being crime in Washington, D.C. And one of the talking heads mentioned that he'll be at a restaurant and he hears people talking about crime in Washington, and it just takes about everything he has not to go over and say, excuse me, I live in Washington, D.C., and there isn't a crime problem there. These people are crafting a fake world, and they want the rest of us to not believe the people of Washington, D.C., and not believe it whenever they talk about how much safer it is just after a few days because of Donald Trump's movement in terms of nationalizing the law enforcement in D.C. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today. It's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight, a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers, and then once again hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
Newsweek has a piece. Gavin Newsom's team unveils new nickname for J.D. Vance. Why do these people keep trying? Do you want to know what the nickname is?
Oh, I cannot wait.
It's J.D. Just Dance Vance.
Okay.
And I combed through the article trying to figure out like what that is supposed to mean, and nowhere does it explain it. It's like they just found something that rhymed with Vance. That's the best I can tell. I don't understand what this Just Dance Vance thing. You guys are not good at this. You should not be trying to play this game. So the story reads, after pivoting into a Donald Trump style of social media posting to mock the U.S. president, California Governor Gavin Newsom's team has now introduced a new nickname for Vice President J.D. Vance, Just Dance Vance. The governor's office was commenting on Vance's recent visit to Indianapolis, where Republicans are under pressure from the Trump administration to redraw the state's electoral map ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The same move has recently been pushed by Texas Republicans in the Lone Star State, promising to give the GOP 5 additional seats next year. The controversial strategy is behind the recent fleeing of Texas Democrats from the state and sparked nationwide protest against a Trump takeover on Saturday. Did you know that there were nationwide protests that were occurring? I wasn't aware of this.
Yep, not a clue.
Newsom's office wrote on X Saturday, not even J.D. Just Vance Dance can save Trump from the disastrous maps war he has started. Then Newsweek writes why it matters. I love when the media explains to you why you should care. The kind of trolling that Newsom is currently directing at Trump on social media is yet another step in the quickly escalating clash between the U.S. president and the California governor. Their relationship has deteriorated after Trump decided to send thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to Los Angeles earlier this summer, despite Newsom's objections. The president justified the move as necessary to contain protests in the city against his administration's mass deportation efforts, but Newsom said he was only trying to fulfill, quote, the deranged fantasy of a dictatorial president. The state of California has since sued the president for sending federal troops to Los Angeles without Newsom's permission. A trial was held last week, and a decision in the case is looming. Giving Vance a nickname, Just Dance Vance, is just one of the many ways Newsom is imitating Trump's very recognizable social media posting style to mock the president. These include using derogatory nicknames for his political opponents, writing in all caps and overtly and exaggeratingly praising himself for a real or imagined achievement in Trump's social media world. The California governor is often referred to as New Scum. In his mocking post, Newsom has repeatedly referred to Trump as tiny hands. Which, does Trump have tiny hands? This is why they should not play this game. So Newsom was asked by a reporter what's going on with these posts on X that are clearly trolling the president. Newsom said, I hope it's a wake-up call for the president. I'm just following his example. If you have issues with what I'm putting out, you sure as hell should have concerns with what he's putting out. And so the Democrats have increasingly been taking this position. Well, they did it first, which oftentimes isn't true. But it's just this reactionary mode that Democrats have put themselves in, where everything that they do and say is based off of what did Trump do or say. And then, this is the attempt to duplicate the popularity. This is what happens when you aren't secure in yourself, when you're not secure in your party, when you see somebody you observe, as they do Donald Trump, and it drives them nuts that he's popular, that he resonates with people. The American people like him, like what he's doing, but instead of looking for the real reasons that people like Trump, they just try to mimic him on the surface. And we've seen this in a variation of different ways, but trying to come up with the nicknames is one in which they fail miserably. And the name has to at least make sense.
Okay, so I think, now that I've had some coffee, I think that he is saying that JD stands for Just Dance.
But I still...
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, I think that was his mindset when he was creating this, which is stupid.
I mean, I almost wish that they could do better. There's no game in this. There's no challenge. Trump dealing with these political opponents, it is almost unfair, and they just have no creative like that. You have a team of people. This is according to the Newsweek article.
I mean,
It's
you
his
have
team.
AI, like AI it.
I, they're just very, very bad at this. They lack creativity, and it's not unlike the whole taco thing where they were calling Trump taco, and that went absolutely nowhere. Though I did see it resurface. Was it Swalwell or it was one of those guys that's just clearly deranged when it comes to Donald Trump, and they just try too hard, but they fail remarkably consistently, and the just don't. Somebody needs to tell them just stop, quit trying to be Donald Trump. You cannot do it. The cursing thing, that's another, because Trump has on occasion used curse words. And so they're like, well, let's go out and let's start doing that. But it's just obvious why they're doing it. And the reason that it can work with Trump is because, frankly, the few times that Trump has used curse words, it was just organic. And the attention that was paid, it was more about just the message itself and not the curse word. The curse word, take it or leave it. But these people on the left, they think, oh well, let's just start using curse words, and every bit of it, whether it is name calling or posting things on social in all caps like Donald Trump does, it just reeks of sadness and depression. And this is what happens when you don't have a core self, when you don't have an authentic self, and it's something that is just painful almost to watch, but it is somewhat humorous. I do wish that so if I'm writing the article for Newsweek, this is a question I'm going to ask. What is the JD dance? Okay, so because is that again supposed to be the JD just dance, but does he dance? Is this why do you want him to dance? Nothing about it makes any sense. But I suppose it's fitting given the Democrat Party and most of their policies don't add up and lead to nothing other than confusion and losing. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Trump welcoming Putin to Alaska, where they sat down and just the coverage of all of this, and even as it was unfolding, it was very frustrating to watch as they kept talking about, whether there's going to be some sort of deal. And I felt like I was the only one that understood that that's not what this was about. This wasn't about coming up with a deal. This was about gauging where Putin is in this stuff. This is, and Trump said, I'll know within 2 minutes whether he is serious about actually bringing this to a close, actually coming to the table with Zelensky and figuring out how to end this. He said, it'll take me 2 minutes. And when he was asked, how do you know that you'll know? And he answered, because this is what I do. And he does, this is what he does. He sizes people up. And by the way that, things seem to unfold, Trump feels as if, all right, Putin is going to be willing to come to the table. And I'm sure they talked about, what Putin is, wanting in terms of land to keep, which Zelensky has been, out there saying that's non-negotiable. That's not going to happen, which, of course, we'll see. At some point, when does it become not worth it any longer? How many lives are you willing to lose in your country in order to make sure that you don't have to give up any land? And if, of course, you are continuing to fight and it's land that currently is under Putin's control, you don't have it anyhow. So these are the things that Zelensky is going to have to figure out. But there was a press conference afterwards, and the media was quite frustrated. They didn't get to ask any questions, and they all acted like they were just shocked at this. And, with Trump, usually he just loves to talk. He loves to go on and on. This is so unusual. What does this mean? It means that they didn't want, Putin to, be asked questions, to be answering questions. Trump generally does answer as many questions as the media wants to ask, but that's when he's in control of everything. He knows what it is he's going to say, or if it is, if it's an ally, if it's another European leader that, is here for or with Trump for friendly reasons, you don't really have to worry too much about something being asked and then something being answered by your counterpart that's going to disrupt things. But words matter, and I'm sure that, whether it was one or both, recognized that it probably would not be beneficial to have Putin answering questions, to potentially derail something by making some assertion. I mean, to me, it just made total and complete sense. I didn't expect there to be a Q&A with Putin there. But again, you listen to the media, and they just were falling over themselves, almost gobsmacked at the fact that this is playing out the way it's playing out, and this is just so unusual. It was exactly what I expected. Now, there are a number of different reports out there that are somewhat specific about what Putin is wanting. The Town Hall has a story. Putin offers peace in exchange for control of Donbas, and this is a region that Putin has grabbed some control over, operational control, from the military incursion, and these are areas that he is apparently, according to Town Hall, saying that he wants. Now, Trump has declared yesterday that Zelensky can end this war almost immediately, and his comments are coming ahead of a scheduled meeting with Zelensky and several other European leaders that is slated to take place today. Trump noting that, this is pretty historic to have so many different world leaders all coming together with Trump in the United States, visiting the White House. And the media, and this is some of the back and forth with Marco Rubio that we'll play coming up here, is portraying it as the NATO, that Trump is just so mean. And he's such a bully to Zelensky that these other European allies are coming along in order to protect him from being bullied. And that is supposed to, of course, make Trump look bad, make Zelensky look good, but all it does is make him look weak on the world stage. That's certainly not a welcomed characterization, I would say, for Zelensky, particularly when you are dealing with Putin on the other end of this fight. trying to portray Zelensky as being so weak that he has to have some allies there to protect him from the mean, evil Donald Trump. And they're being counterproductive because their goal is to make Trump look bad and then to elicit sympathy for Zelensky. But when you're talking about war, and you're talking about two leaders, Putin and Zelensky, that are, trying to outstrength one another, it doesn't do you any favors when you have the U.S. media portraying you as being that weak. So today's meeting, will it roll things along? Will it not? I guess we'll see. Now, coming up, some of the audio, corporate media obsessed with Trump rolling out the red carpet for Putin. You know what I took away from the walking down the red carpet? Was a stealth fighter and other military jets flying low overhead. To me, that was the takeaway, the roaring of that sound, and then Putin looking up and seeing that fly overhead. And I honestly thought that the media would play that up as, Trump, poking the bear a little bit here and now. That certainly isn't going to be helpful to try and antagonize Putin, but instead they obsessed over the red carpet. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today, and it's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight, we'll see a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers, and then once again sunny and hot with a high near 96. And for Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
There was a bunch of tizzy had because of comments Hillary Clinton made. I believe it was on Wednesday or Thursday that she would nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize if he were able to bring this to a conclusion. She noted without Putin getting anything at all. Well, yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, here's the thing, and I know we've talked about this, but the crux is over some of this land. And, Zelensky has said, now the Crimean Peninsula that was taken during the Obama years, I don't know whether Zelensky cares about that, but some of these other regions in which Putin wants. And there's this idea that somehow it is possible to create a situation in which Zelensky gets everything, Putin gets nothing, and agrees to it. What world is that in? Why would Putin do that? He's not going to. That is what a negotiation is. That is what a deal is. Both sides get a little bit of what they want. Otherwise, it is a surrender. And, Putin is willing to keep fighting. I think that we've learned this over the last several years. Zelensky, up until now, obviously, has been willing to continue to do so. Endless wars with countless bodies seems to be something culturally that the Russians don't have a real problem with. So it's not like there's that sort of political pressure on him necessarily. I suppose by way of sanctions, perhaps putting the screws to him to a larger degree. But it's just this idea, and what they're doing is they're trying, I believe, politically to sort of set up a trap, if you will, for Trump, that whatever deal is had, they can claim that it was a gift to Putin, and it's because Trump is a dictator, and they'll almost act mystified as if, he just really has this strange affection for dictators, and it's just so strange, and that really has benefited Putin. But Putin is not going to agree to a deal without having something. And so I believe that what the left is doing largely is they are anticipating that there will be some sort of deal, but they're already trying to set it up as a gift to the dictator from the dictator Donald Trump. There was conversation during the coverage of Putin's arrival and the red carpet.
Just a note on the red carpet of it all. I mean, I think it's a visual that our reporters in the region say is just rubbing Ukraine the wrong way to roll out the red carpet for a man who is wanted for war crimes against Ukraine in what might be a negotiation is something that is not going to be received well there. But I will say that Trump does this as he goes into negotiations in part to make Putin feel welcomed, to make him feel like they are buddies again. And whether or not he uses that to his strategic advantage, we will find out. But it's one that, if Ukraine is our ally in this conflict, is rubbing our ally the wrong way.
That's the test. I mean, Putin is winning in the early moments of this because he's getting a picture greeted by the President of the United States on U.S. soil after more than 3 years of being a pariah in the world for invading a democracy in Europe.
All right. Now, this whole, and Rubio addresses this because he gets asked about this as well, and I think he addressed it properly. There was all this talk about, well, Putin is winning. Putin was being elevated. In the eyes of who? Who are they talking about? To say that, Putin is winning the early stages of this because he had the red carpet rolled in the minds of what people? Everyone seems to know where everyone is when it comes to this particular scenario. It isn't as if the world is up in the air as to what side to be on here, and somehow this is tilting the scales towards Putin in the popularity contest. Nobody in the world, no country is going to go from Putin is the bad guy to, well, maybe he is a good guy because there was red carpet for him in the United States. It's just absurd. They are talking as if there is some audience out there that is undecided on this issue, and that is the thing that somehow is going to have Putin, quote, win. It's nuttiness. Now, in terms of the portrayal of, Trump trying to be buddies with them, if you are charged with taking two enemies and bringing them together to craft some sort of deal, you want to be as not like one side or the you want both sides to trust you. And so that means treating Putin as a world leader and welcoming him in whatever capacity is necessary so he doesn't feel as if the United States official position is that Putin is a bad guy, because Trump is supposed to be the negotiator here. When you have a third-party negotiator, it's got to be somebody that is as neutral as possible. Otherwise, one or both sides that you're trying to bring together are not going to trust you. There's a credibility situation at play. This is why during the campaign, at one point, Donald Trump was asked a question about did he want Zelensky to win, and Trump stayed away from using the term winning and losing when it came to the idea of this coming to an end, because he was smart enough to recognize that if he was going to get elected president and be tasked by his own taking to bring these people together, it's not going to help if he's on the record saying this is the side that I want to win and this is the side that I want to lose, because the one who is the side that you want to lose is going to be a lot less likely to come to the table, given what is a clear stated bias in terms of who you want to win and who you want to lose. All of this, everything that Trump does, is about the end goal of coming up with some sort of meaningful end to this thing. It has nothing to do with who he likes. It has nothing to do with who's a good guy versus who's a bad guy. Everything he states, everything that he posts on Truth Social, everything, whether it is something that's complimentary of Zelensky or something that is calling Zelensky out, and same thing with Putin, it is all because he feels that it is going to move things closer to getting a deal done. And it may not be a correct calculation. He is a human being, and so perhaps certain characterizations or behaviors aren't necessarily going to successfully get us closer or get them closer to some sort of deal. But that's what it's all about with him. And there is, of course, the Trump derangement syndrome component here. But in addition to that, I think because we have been so accustomed as a world to doing things for appearance sakes, and it doesn't really matter whether or not we believe that a particular peace deal is going to hold. It's just all about coming up with a deal. The Iranian nuclear agreement under the Obama administration is a perfect example of it. It was nothing other than a gift to the Iranians. But for the elites of the world and for the elites of Washington, D.C., it's a historic agreement because it's an agreement. It doesn't actually achieve any particular sort of end goal. And so the virtue signaling of world leadership, we have become so accustomed to that's what the media largely obsesses over here with the red carpet and the doing this and the doing that. And what sort of message does it send? And so you combine the fact that it's Trump and that he does things differently. It leaves them at a complete loss, and it's quite a thing to observe as they cover it and discuss it and try to figure out exactly what is going on with all of this. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio making the rounds. ABC, he was, I guess, challenged with this whole by Martha Raddatz, this Trump treating Putin nicely thing and elevating him on the world stage.
President Trump will say the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, the warm handshake, that President Trump simply lost that Putin gained there just by being on the world stage and walking down a red carpet with the president. Your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, critics of President Trump are always going to find something to criticize. You don't even pay attention to it anymore. But I will tell you this, Putin is already on the world stage. He's already on the world stage. The guy's conducting a full-scale war in Ukraine. He's already on the world stage. He has the world's largest tactical nuclear arsenal in the world and the second largest strategic nuclear arsenal in the world. He's already on the world stage. When I hear people say that, oh, it elevates him, well, all we do is talk about Putin all the time. All the media's done is talk about Putin all the time for the last 4 or 5 years. That doesn't mean he's right about the war. That doesn't mean he's justified about the war. Put all that aside. It means you're not going to have a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. You're not going to end a war between Russia and Ukraine without dealing with Putin. That's just common sense. I shouldn't even have to say it. So people can say whatever they want. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to get the Russian side to agree to things that they don't want to agree to if we're going to have peace. If not, there'll just be a war. They'll keep killing each other. And life will go on in America and in the rest of the world, but not for Ukraine. So the president has invested a lot of time in trying to bring an end to this war. He deserves credit for doing that. He gets criticism for doing that. He could have just let this war go on. The president could have just said, this is Biden's war. It started under him. We'll do what we can for Ukraine, but we're going to focus on other things. He could have easily said that.
Now, a couple of things there. One, and it's the initial elevating Putin on the world stage and Rubio's spot-on assertion. Like, to whom is he being elevated? I mean, he is on the world stage. This isn't some nobody that lacks any sort of power, but because of the warm handshake from Donald Trump and the red carpet, suddenly he's being given credibility in the eyes of people that he didn't once have it. I mean, it's just it's almost difficult to articulate some sort of response back to it because it just doesn't make any sense. Marco Rubio then over on NBC, Meet the Press. And the assertion here is that Zelensky coming to the White House with all these other European leaders is to protect Zelensky because Donald Trump is just a mean bully.
They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're
well,
not
that
coming.
February Oval Office meeting in front of
because...
television cameras where President Zelensky
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh, no, I know. And I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but with Zelensky, we've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. But that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire.
As early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
One of the things that I really like about Marco Rubio is he just straight up calls it for what it is. And the notation there that this is just a stupid narrative. And I like that because it's normal talk. It's true. It gets right to the point. And I think it demonstrates this frustration Marco Rubio has. You know, of course, he's been in politics for a long while and a U.S. senator and then ran for president and was pretty harsh in terms of enemies with Donald Trump at the time. I mean, those two guys really, knocked one another as viciously as they could, verbally, obviously, whenever the 2016 primary election was going on. I think that Marco Rubio, though, more than ever, seeing behind the scenes, being part of these efforts, And then you go on television and the media is talking about just some world that doesn't even exist. And here you have these European leaders, and Trump felt that it might help things along to, where he's not the only one and Rubio's not the only one talking to Zelensky. But if we have some of these other European leaders that are there, that there could be some, force in numbers, and that it might help Zelensky make some meaningful concessions, if necessary, that would help bring this to an end if it wasn't just the United States. See, what Trump has recognized is that Zelensky, and I think there's a deal of frustration here, is he's going to the European allies in order to try to get them on his side of not having to give up any land. And Trump, I believe, is recognizing that that is not helpful to any of this. And it allows Zelensky to convince himself that, well, I have allies when it comes to not conceding any land with these European leaders. And that is facilitating this, ongoing war, with Zelensky not feeling the pressure to make these meaningful concessions. And so Trump, I believe, wants to get those European leaders in the same room so that he feels that almost like an intervention of sorts. And so, as Marco Rubio noted, this is something that the White House arranged. This is something that that the White House wanted. And then he goes on national television and, they're living in this world in which, these European allies, they just came along here because Donald Trump is such a bully and Zelensky needs help. And it's got to be frustrating as Secretary of State to know what is really going on, and then to have the media with these, in his words, and I think that they're accurate, stupid narrative. And the simplicity with which he calls it out, I think, is warranted. And increasingly, the media just makes itself more and more irrelevant. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. HunterHardscapes.com, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Obviously, I talk about the hardscaping component of things, the patio that we had designed and built by Hunter Hardscapes. But, they do so much in addition to that: landscaping, sod installation, garden bed construction, efficient draining solutions, landscape lighting, paver patios, retaining walls. The landscape lighting, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend, and she was talking about her and her husband had been in Memphis and just observing some of the really historic and beautiful homes. And she said that she noticed the one thing they all had in common in the evening is they had lighting. And it does make a huge difference also to the safety of your home. People tend to not want to be snooping around your home if it is all lit up. And so she's going to be reaching out to Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor for lighting purposes. And I just bring that up because they do so many different things, whether it's water features or sound or that I don't mention all of those things as often as I probably could. And so you can see the work that they do and even get a ballpark estimate on the cost by going to their website and enter in some information. And it's just going to give you a bit of an idea of what you're looking at. And that's one of the services that they offer that you don't oftentimes find with hardscapers and landscapers. HunterHardscapes.com is the site, and you can read reviews there and see before and after pics as well. And of course, as always, KSGF.com. Nick's endorsements, you can find them there as well. We've got another hour, 2 hours straight ahead, in fact. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, welcome to the show. Good Monday. My name is Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 417447 KSGF, noting the meeting, the welcoming of Putin by Trump, a text saying there were 3 power moves that Trump did on the tarmac. Number 1, he walked to the spot and waited, making Putin come to him. Number 2, he pulled Putin in very close on the handshake, almost physically moving him. And number 3, that amazing flyover. And Sarah, you noted that one of the things that sort of what I think is power play, if you will, was the fact that as those the flyover occurred, Trump was almost indifferent to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And not because of indifference to it or military, but it just sort of like, yep, that's us. You know, not I don't know. I think there's this power in not bragging about certain things. There's a power in behaving as if that this is normal for us. That sort of military might. Yep, that's who we are. And so those are those little subtle things I swear Trump does deliberately. Or it may have been natural, too. He may have, hey, seen plenty of these planes. It's not really a moment for me to stop and look at it in awe because I'm the commander-in-chief, head of the armed forces, and this is what we got. And I think that sort of reaction is a demonstration of strength. And, of course, with the previous hour, we played audio of the media trying to portray all of that as Putin was actually the one that was being given strength and that we somehow elevated Putin. And I think that Secretary of State Rubio answered that quite nicely in noting that's just a stupid narrative. And the guy is already elevated. He's the world leader of Russia. He's got a massive nuclear arsenal. This isn't somebody that is irrelevant to the world and has been given relevancy by Donald Trump. Bill Maher discussing the idea that Donald Trump is, a puppet of Putin, a stooge of Putin, that he's going to be giving Putin the upper hand. And what I like about Bill Maher is that even though he is a liberal, even though he is a leftist, when he sees reality, he recognizes reality. And that's what he was addressing on Friday's show.
Funny, I see that today is the anniversary of Woodstock. This is 56 years ago. And the hippies, what did they hate more than anything else? War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. So if you're the kind of person who says, you can find some good in anybody, this would be the good in Donald Trump. He really does not like war. Thailand and Cambodia were having firing at each other. Rwanda and the Congo. Most people don't even know about these. India and Pakistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He got involved in all of them. He really, he doesn't really, he wants to. Now, the way he does it, as usual, not, with Ukraine, the solution was, surrender. Give Putin everything he wants. And even that didn't work. That's the thing. He gave Putin anything he wanted, and it didn't work. But again, let's not have the zombie lie that he's still backing Putin because, first of all, he bombed Iran. That was a Putin ally. He didn't get out of NATO. He mended fences with NATO. So, and he put sanctions back on Russia. So,
You're really coming around, Bill.
I'm not coming around. There's no coming around. There's just to what's true.
One of the mysterious things to me, I will say, when someone like Bill Maher is honest enough to note reality, but it still somehow never connects in the sense that maybe I should switch my belief systems here. He made the comment that, the way he does it, obviously, you don't have to like that. Well, why not? If the results are what matters, that's why the results. end up how they are because of the way that the left, even when they see and are able to acknowledge the outcome and the positives of the outcome, it's like they disconnect it from the approach that Trump took in order to get there. As if these were things that if Trump had taken some other approach that they approved of, that all of these peace deals would be occurring. No, they wouldn't. The reason that all of those different countries he listed off and acknowledged have come to the table and stopped fighting one another is precisely because of Donald Trump's way of doing it. It's precisely because of Donald Trump's approach. That's why this stuff works. And it's just, I mentioned last hour, Mike Pence on one of the different networks talking about how he's just very familiar with the way Trump does things, and Trump, when it comes to dealing with people like Putin and trying to get these deals done, that Trump uses a velvet glove and he needs to instead be using a hammer. Oh, where's your resume on this stuff? They live in this fantasy world. And even when they can acknowledge when they do that it works, these results are positive results, they still can't somehow connect it to the fact that Trump is Trump, that it became a positive result because of Donald Trump and because of his approach. It's almost as if they just rationalize it all as, well, he got lucky. Like, I suppose he just happened to stumble into luck and these different outcomes that occur that make him look good because it is a good outcome. That this is just it's just something that inevitably probably would have happened anyhow. Trump just happened to be the person at the helm when it occurred. Some of these individuals, and it's refreshing to hear somebody like Bill Maher, who ideologically is opposed to Donald Trump, but can recognize when he has these massive successes and that his approach doesn't jive with the BS of being allies of Putin and being on Putin's side. None of that stuff jives. But it would be nice for that additional step to occur in which, like, maybe he knows what he's doing. Whether it is tariffs or peace deals, the border, Washington, D.C., federalizing law enforcement, it doesn't mean that every single thing that he does is right and that it's always going to turn out well. But he does have a pretty significant track record of being the one guy who says, no, we should do it this way, against a chorus of experts who say that will never work. And then he turns out to be right over and over again. And at what point do some of these people just say, maybe he knows what he's doing? But there's just this wall, and I suppose that's the Trump derangement syndrome that just forbids people from ever acknowledging that maybe he knows what he's doing. James Comey, we are learning, is even weirder than I think most people expected, with about a 6-minute, almost a tribute video to Taylor Swift, and he sounds like I don't think he is this, but he comes across as the sort of person that you might find on To Catch a Predator. And I think that when you hear some of the audio, I'm not going to play all of it because it's like 6 minutes long, but I think that you'll see what I mean when you hear some of it, not just the words, but the way he talks in it. It's very weird, very creepy. And it's just a demonstration what an oddball this guy is. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today, and it's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight we'll see a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and then sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
I want to great homeloan.com. Talked about this theme quite often, but it is important, and that is those of you who are holding off on getting a home loan because of interest rates and waiting for them to fall. And what will occur if you do that is other people who are doing the exact same thing will also be in the marketplace, which means you have an increased number of buyers, which allows for the price of homes to go up. And that supply and demand situation is a reality. Plus, when interest rates go down, there is a recognition by the seller that you can afford more home because of the interest rates. And so then the price of the home is going to go up as well for that reason. And so point being is if you are simply waiting for the interest rates to go down because you feel as if that is going to be giving you advantage, in all likelihood, that is not going to be the reality. Now, everyone's situation is different and unique, and I recommend that you reach out to the Carrickers and their team if you are one of those individuals that are waiting, and have a conversation with them so that you can determine whether or not that is the best move for you to make. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. James Comey made a posting, and it was a combination of sort of this weird, almost uncomfortable gush fest about Taylor Swift, and essentially how she helps him overcome mean people like Donald Trump. Now, we'll get it posted so you can watch it or listen to it in its entirety. It's about 6 minutes long, and I didn't want to sit here and play the full 6 minutes, but I did grab the opening and the closing of it just to give you an idea. And here he is the first part of his posting. This is James Comey, former director of the FBI.
Last week's cold turns out to have been COVID, quite a flashback. And Donald Trump is still president and still humiliating America on a national stage, standing next to Vladimir Putin. It's like a dream, a bad dream you can't wake up from. But I don't want to talk about that bad dream this week. I want to talk about a truly inspirational public figure named Taylor Swift. Of course, I watched her podcast interview with the Kelsey brothers. Of course, I watched the whole thing, although on YouTube, Patrice and I got kicked off for the last 15 minutes and finished it on her phone. But I watched it. You see, Taylor Swift and I go way back. I went to my first concert of hers 15 years ago. I've been to a second, and I have helped financially support the attendance of a lot of family members at others. I'm in a family's Swiftie group chat. I know all her music, and I listen to it in my headphones when I cut the grass. So yes, I have a favorite of hers, although honestly, for me, it's a tie between All Too Well, 10-minute version, and Exile featuring Bon Iver. Taylor Swift has grown up with my family and provided us a soundtrack, really, as we've grown ourselves and learned and adapted and dealt with adversity and celebration. She had songs for all of it. I suspect that's something that millions of Americans have also experienced in their families. I think that's because Taylor Swift produces great art, but also because she models something. At every stage of her career, she's shown a certain way of being that resonated with my kids and also felt right to me as a parent. And she's still doing that as a grown-up. Like a lot of you, I struggle with how to stand up to bullies without letting their meanness infect me and change me.
All right, so that's the beginning of James Comey's 6-minute or thereabouts, time-wise, posting regarding Taylor Swift. Who is he talking to?
He's just cringy.
Like, he made a comment about how he didn't want to talk about something this week. So that suggests to me that he does these videos on a regular basis. Who is watching these things? Now, he's going to get a lot of attention for this one because it's weird. And because he's weird. He is not someone, if I had a teenage daughter, that I would allow around my teenage daughter alone. And I'm not saying that he's that level of, but he just gives off this weird, it has this vibe to it of someone who is hoping Taylor Swift will see this and be so touched that she'll reach out to him, and then maybe he can start some sort of relationship with her. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but if an adult man who is old enough to be her father was doing that, that's what it would sound like. Let's see, what time is it? All right, I'll take a break, and then I want to play the last minute or so of it. And I mean, the in-between is all pretty much just this weirdness about Taylor Swift and how inspiring and how she has, helped guide him through life. And it's just so weird. Former FBI Director James Comey confessed in a weird video yesterday that Taylor Swift has been his and his family's soundtrack through life, helping guide him through. It's just a weird thing. He's going to get, I'm sure, a lot of attention because it is weird. It's the sort of off-air, Sarah described it as, it's the sort of video that if Taylor Swift up and disappeared, you would start with him. You would go to his house and find the crawl space and look under there first. We'll get it posted if you want to watch all of it. It's roughly 6 minutes. Is that about what it is?
Yeah.
Time, roughly 6 minutes. And I played the opening of it, and this is his final thoughts regarding Taylor Swift in his posting.
I really enjoy reading Arthur Brooks, who writes columns about happiness in The Atlantic. I don't know if he's a Swiftie, but last week he wrote about research on the way that being rude or snarky actually hurts the rude person. As he wrote, when you become less polite, the alteration in your conduct can make you less happy, more depressed, and angrier about life. I know you get that even without the research. Just watch Fox News or hang around on X and you'll see what he means. We can't stop people from being jerks. What we can do is stop it from hurting us, from changing us. At my second Taylor Swift concert in Hartford, Connecticut, 14 years ago this summer, she sang a song about this topic, asking, why you gotta be so mean? And she spoke directly to the nasty people. I bet you got pushed around. Somebody made you cold. But the cycle ends right now because you can't lead me down that road. You'll be glad I didn't sing that. That's right. Because down that road is unhappiness. Nobody should have that power over us. Thank you, Taylor Swift. Keep the faith.
What a weirdo.
So weird.
Now, this is a guy that posted pictures of suggesting the assassination of the President of the United States. This is one of the things that is a hallmark of people on the left, and it's complete, utter projection. Aside from the whole obvious, just weird part about all of that, the creepiness of it, but the message itself, it is the standard projection of the left. He is aligned with the political party. Well, and he himself was involved in protecting Hillary Clinton. He was involved in what he knew was a fake disinformation campaign in order to falsely paint Donald Trump as being somehow allied with Putin. And he is aligned with a political party that calls supporters of Donald Trump Nazis. They go on claiming that democracy as we know it is going to come to an end, that if Donald Trump gets elected president, then we'll never have another election again. These are some of the nastiest, meanest people, and yet here he is, channeling Taylor Swift to encourage us to not be nasty, to rise above it all, when it is he and the others that are part of his political alliance that have been anything but positive and kind. But instead, you think about what this country had gone through because of Comey and because of Brennan and Clapper and these other individuals, because of the lies they told, because they're so obsessed with their hatred of Donald Trump, worked to rig elections, worked to overthrow a presidency, and then to have the audacity to lecture the American people via Taylor Swift lyrics on we need to be more positive. Oh, okay. We'll get right on that, James, dirty cop.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today, and it's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight we'll see a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers, and then sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Wednesday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
There was a posting made a couple of days ago on social media from Greene County Sheriff's Office, and it read as follows. It still does. It's still there. The Greene County Sheriff's Office was notified of a planned protest by the local chapter of the 50-51 movement for today. Now, again, this is a couple days ago, and this is, these are the crazy conspiracy theory left-wingers, and 50 states, 50 protests, one coming together, on one day or whatever. The Greene County Sheriff's Office noted that we have been in communication with the group's local coordinators and have identified a location on our campus where participants may lawfully and peacefully assemble. The Sheriff's Office fully respects the constitutional rights of individuals to gather and express their views. While we understand the perspective of this organization, its stated objectives do not align with the values and priorities we believe best serve our community and our nation. The Greene County Sheriff's Office has a long-standing record of cooperation with our federal partners, including U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, known as ICE, in support of lawful immigration enforcement. Our office will continue to work within the law to support the President's directives and the will of our citizens, which includes securing our border and taking lawful action regarding individuals who are in the country illegally, sheriff or not. And so I don't know how many people showed up for this event. I didn't really see any. I don't know even know if there was any news coverage. But I had, prior to seeing that, printed off a story on Town Hall that I thought was a nice little pairing. Request for one particular service has skyrocketed by 400% under Donald Trump. The CEO of Crowds on Demand revealed that requests for paid protesters have skyrocketed by 400% after President Donald Trump took office. Crowds on Demand is a public relations company that provides crowds of people for various purposes, including corporate events and political protests. During an interview with Fox and Friends host Lawrence Jones, CEO Adam Swart discussed the protest against Trump's decision to federalize law enforcement in Washington, D.C., telling Jones that protesters could be paid, quote, from the low 100s into a few hundred, depending on the location, the duration, and any challenges like cold weather or early mornings. Swart stressed that his company conducts its operations in a peaceful and law-abiding manner. We are peaceful protesters, respectful protesters focused on persuasion. Well, you're paid protesters. The company, according to Town Hall, is not partisan in its approach, having worked with right and left-leaning movements. Joan asked whether participants actually believe in the cause for which they're demonstrating. Quote, when you identify these people, do they genuinely share these beliefs, or are they just there for a paycheck, he inquired. Swart claims that they genuinely share the beliefs, saying, I'll put it this way, I'm asking your viewers right now, if you got paid a couple of $100s, and probably most of your viewers lean conservative, would you guys go to a BLM protest for a couple of $100s? I bet most of your viewers are shouting into their TV screens, no, I would not do that, right? So whether it's conservative, there's a lot of misinformation that we only work for the left. We work for the left and right, but we're always on the side of common sense and generally on the side of the underdog. Now, I don't know I believe that this is overwhelmingly utilized by people on the left. I don't know what events people on the right need to pay protesters to show up for. There are two types of events that I believe sum up what conservatives, people who believe they're conservative, people who are generally conservative, the two types of events that you would see a crowd. One would be a Trump event or rally, and I just find it extremely unlikely that you would have to pay. In fact, I don't believe it, that you would have to pay Trump supporters to go see Donald Trump. I mean, these are individuals that oftentimes will stand outside 24, 48 hours ahead of time in the heat just to see Donald Trump. The other are pro-life individuals, and I also don't think that pro-life events need to pay pro-life individuals to come to the events. It just doesn't add up to me. Now, on the left, while he claims that many of these people, or that, all of them actually believe in the cause, I suspect that they do, but at the same time, they don't ever know what they're talking about. They don't understand the cause. You've probably seen, as have I, videos that end up going viral where you'll have some conservative or independent-leaning individual that will go to these events and start asking just very basic fundamental questions about their belief systems, and they can't answer the questions. They don't even understand why it is that they believe what they believe. All they know is that, well, Donald Trump is Hitler, Donald Trump is evil, and conservatives are evil, and they are totalitarians. And, they use all these buzzwords that they don't really even understand necessarily, and they can't articulate and explain their positions. The fact that the number of request for paid protesters increased 400% after Donald Trump took office tells us that these are all left-wingers. And I think that it's just something valuable to keep in mind when you see a number of these different events, you hear about these protests that are occurring, and the fact that openly, which is kind of crazy to me, everyone knows that there are at least a significant number of people being paid to be there. It says a lot. And it's a demonstration that so much on the left is artificial, that what we're told is this groundswell of organic fear about Donald Trump, while they do, I think, a relatively effective job of falsely scaring people into believing things that are not true. At the same time, the fact that you have to pay so many of these people just to show up to protest is somewhat of a demonstration that they're not really that passionate about this. I recall, as many of you may recall as well, I want to say it was when Biden was running against Trump, the 2020. And, it may have even been the 2016 election with Hillary Clinton, and there would be these rumors, people would claim that they would find on, social media offers to pay people to show up at these left-wing events. And I think in the beginning, a lot of people were suspicious that they were actually having to pay people to show up, and just the way that would look anyhow. If you're throwing a campaign event or some sort of cause event, if it gets leaked out that you have to pay people in order to be there, that just doesn't look that good for you. And so I think that a lot of people, when you first started hearing about that, didn't really know whether it was true or not. But we've gone from that to where now you have the CEO of a company that this is what they do and openly talking about it. And the fact that you have the CEO of Crowds on Demand openly talking about, yes, this is what we do. We get hired in order to pay people to show up and protest, is just a demonstration of how fake so much of this is, that they don't even try to hide it any longer. I'd be kind of ticked if I showed up at one of these protests for free and then found out that the guy or gal next to me was getting paid. Maybe this is why at some of these left-wing protests, they're all Seems like elderly people, about 80 to 90% are elderly. Give them a little extra walking around money. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. I went by there after the show Friday. They were
did
smoking
you?
those alligators out there.
It looked so good.
Did look good.
So did you get any, or
No,
was it too early?
Well, it was too early, and by time I was going to be able to get back over there, it was, I think, going to be too late.
Dang.
Yeah, so I didn't get a chance to have any, but it sure looked delicious.
It really did. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. If you are in the HVAC industry and you're waking up and you're just thinking, I don't really want to go to work today. I'm ready for a change of pace. A different company. The Foreman team, they are expanding. Russell is looking for qualified service techs to join his team. They're locally owned, family owned, and just all around just a great group of people. So if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, reach out to Russell and apply today. And of course, for the rest of you, AC season is still sticking around. It's hot. It's going to stay hot. And if your AC is not running up to par, the Foreman team, they have got you covered. They do residential and commercial services. Whether you need an AC tune-up or a whole new unit, they can take care of all of your HVAC needs. So you can find all of the contact information for Russell and his team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Some of the Pyramid Roofing Company text line messages you sent in regarding James Comey's really weird and cringy and creepy video message about Taylor Swift and just how he's been there with her on this journey of his life since, the concert, this first one, I think he said 14 years ago this summer, talking about how meaningful these songs are, and it's just a weird thing. The text messages regarding this say, now I'm picturing a bunch of feds exchanging bracelets and not solving crimes. Comey sounds like he's in some Taylor Swift religion. Pretty sure, another one said, he's setting up his insanity plea when justice comes a knocking. Comey has drank the Kool-Aid of the Church of Taylor Swift. Another noting that he just needs some psychological help. This is a interesting one. Remember the guy that shot Reagan to impress Jodie Foster? Yeah, it does kind of have a little bit of that vibe. Like he's really thirsty for her attention. Yeah, that's how it came off to me. And best way to put it is if someone as an adult was going to have this like fantasy world where they put out some sort of message regarding Taylor Swift and how she has been part of raising his family, and that, you know, you put it out there in the universe and secretly hoping that she'll be so touched she'll reach out to you, and then you're going to start some sort of relationship, like that fantasy, that detachment from reality. That's what James Comey sounded like.
Yeah, kidnapper or
Right.
stalker vibes.
Yeah, totally. And we just played 2 minutes, the opening and the ending, but he goes on for an additional 4 minutes in between, which is a lot of the same stuff. And again, it's the sort of thing that if your daughter, if you found out that there was somebody left a message that was an adult for your teenage daughter, you would be very, very upset, and you would probably be calling the authorities. Maybe he is hoping that she will visit him in prison. That is where he belongs. And okay, so those are the Taylor Swift, James Comey text messages coming in. That guy ran the FBI. I mean, it's just crazy to me. And here is the level of, to me, craziness, is that he didn't, the inability to gauge how weird that is going to come off to the average person. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old girl or a 21-year-old woman, or, you know, you can almost understand some of it, but being, how old is he? 60 something? I would imagine. So maybe early 60s, late 50s?
64.
64, okay. For 64-year-old guy? And then to just put it out there in the universe like that and not realize how it would come off. That's the part of it that I think is really points to his level of delusion, that I think he really genuinely believes that somehow that is going to be seen as normal or inspiring, or he's so insightful to be able to use this apparent obsession with Taylor Swift over the years and all the concerts, and he cuts his grass while listening to her and listing his favorite songs, that for a former director of the FBI who's 64 years old to be going on and on like that. And if it were me, that's the sort of thing that you keep hidden. You don't tell people. Maybe you have a little closet and you have all the clippings in there, but, you know, nobody comes over, nobody sees it. One day, you know, if a search warrant gets issued and then the police find it and they're like, uh-oh, we got a real problem here. This guy clearly is crazy. But James Comey decides, I know, I want to put it in video form and then put it out there for the world to see, because that's perfectly normal. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Well, we got some more really great text messages in
Oh, good.
regarding Comey and this very awkward and almost inappropriate. I mean, it's not, but I just strange video about Taylor Swift and just the years and years that he's followed her and how she's inspired him. And it's so weird. And I got a text reminding me that there's someone that once upon a time was in my world orbit that worked directly for Taylor Swift for several years. And this person reminded me that literally that's the sort of posting that would her security would like have a heads up about a guy like that. Like, hey, this is a weird guy posting these things. Making sure that you're on the lookout for someone like that. And I believe that to be 100% true. Yeah, if it was some 16-year-old girl, it's a whole different story. But when you're the former director of the FBI, you're a 64-year-old guy, and you're posting stuff like that. Some of the text messages coming in, now we know who the first DEI hire was. Sounds like Comey wants to sniff Taylor's hair, said another. Comey seems to think FBI stands for female body inspector. Nick and Sarah, I wouldn't be surprised if Comey was a brony. Do you know what that is?
No.
That is what they call an adult male who is obsessed with My Little Pony.
Oh.
They're weirdos.
Yeah.
And so yes, 100%, that seems like it would fit. Let's see. Comey probably has a kidnapping kit in his car. Duct tape, rope, gag. Except he has Swift Comey 2028 bumper stickers as well. That he has made up to impress her. Does he not realize that her boyfriend can beat the crap out of him? That would be really funny.
I like that one.
What do you think his wife thinks about it? Do you think that she also recognizes how abnormal that is?
I mean, she's married to him, so you gotta think that she's also got to be kind of a weirdo.
Yeah, she might think that it's perfectly normal. I don't know.
Oh, that's just James.
Yeah, he's always posting silly things like seashells with messages on them. Right. Weird, borderline obsessive evaluation of Taylor Swift songs. He is someone that the FBI, under any other circumstances, might pay a visit to. I could guarantee you, if he weren't James Comey, and he hadn't been the former director of the FBI, he was just some school bus driver posting something like this, one, he'd probably lose his job. And two, in all likelihood, there might be a phone call to Taylor Swift's security people and telling her, hey, just so you know, he's probably harmless, just another one of these pervert guys that obsesses over women that are much younger and makes these, postings, but you never know. So we just want to give you a bit of a heads up. I mean, the thing of it isn't so brazenly over the line. I mean, there's nothing sexual in nature about it. It's that weird sort of gray area that if it were, again, a young person, then you wouldn't think much of it. But those words and the way he says them and just almost the breathiness of a 64-year-old man talking about that sort of, it just makes it odd. May not even be bad, may not be wrong, may not be anything real creepy, but it is odd. I think it's fair to say. Coming up, there increasingly, the people of Washington, D.C., particularly people of color, are very pleased with how things are going. While rich white liberals protest the nationalizing of the law enforcement by Trump in D.C., the rich white liberals mad about it, upset about it, but the people of color who are lower and middle income are thus far very, very pleased, which I think says something. That coming up. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, had a recent posting on her social media regarding air conditioning units. And, of course, this time of year is when you realize that they need repair. If they need repair, they need replaced, they need replaced. It's because you have them on. They're working a little extra hard. And she said that, there's a few phone numbers she always has on her. One is air conditioning, one is plumbers, because, when these things occur, oftentimes you need immediate help. And she noted that if you are selling your home and there is the need to upgrade or fix anything along those lines, instead of going to social media, which I've seen people do, and I understand the instinct, saying, does anybody know a good this? Does anybody know a good AC person? Does anybody know a good plumber? You're just going to get all these random suggestions thrown at you, but your realtor should have those contacts and know who's good. And it's one of the many characteristics that Emily Johnson brings to the table that a lot of others don't to the degree that she does. She's so much more full service than a lot of others, that reaching out to your trusted realtor or mine, which would be Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and utilizing that knowledge, because she, on a daily basis, is dealing with things that need to be fixed up with homes. And so she knows who's trustworthy, she knows who does quality work, and who's not going to rip you off. And that is so extremely valuable when it comes to home buying, home selling. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Terry Moran, you may recall, he was the ABC reporter that lost his job after he posted something insane about Donald Trump. And he is an unhinged anti-Trump nut job. And he made a posting regarding Trump welcoming Putin on Friday, saying, clapping for the war criminal. What a disgrace to our country's ideals. Trump always shows his true colors around Putin, and he always sells out America and our allies. I remember when Republican presidents like Reagan, Bush always stood up to tyrants. This is pathetic. Now, Moran is clearly a left-winger that thinks Obama could do no wrong, and never really had anything overtly critical to say about Joe Biden when it came to the way that Biden was dealing with Putin. And this is another example of how people on the left, they don't care about actual results. Of Biden, Obama, and Trump, Obama did nothing whatsoever when Putin took the Crimean Peninsula from the Ukrainians. Just rolled the tanks in and took it. John Kerry, who was Secretary of State at the time, made a statement that somebody needs to tell Putin he just can't do that. Well, yeah, he could, and he did. No pushback. Now, listen, incidentally, I'm not saying that we should have gone to war over it. There was a commitment made during the Clinton administration that if they gave up their nuclear weapons and could no longer protect themselves from a Russian invasion, don't worry, we'll be there and we will help you out. And arguably, we haven't really lived up to that commitment. But whether we should or shouldn't have is a different subject matter. But what we do know is that the Obama administration did nothing punitive to Putin when he invaded the Crimean Peninsula and took it from the Ukrainians. Now, when Trump was president the first time around, Putin halted his invasion. Did not go any further. We know this. This is factual information. Then Biden gets in there, and many people look at Afghanistan as the sort of triggering point for Putin to recognize that he could do whatever he wanted with Biden in the White House, whether it was that or something else. Fact of the matter is, the invasion, which we knew was coming, because the answer from the Biden administration was, don't. When you would have either Kamala or Joe Biden ask, well, do you have a message for Putin as he, lines the Ukrainian border with troops? Don't. Oh, okay. Well, we'll put sanctions on you if you invade. And what we, of course, know would happen is what we're dealing with over 3 years later, and that is this bloody battle that is going on between the Russians and the Ukrainians. So that was under Biden. Now, knowing all of that, and then Trump, when he gets reelected, is the first world leader that has worked towards this thing coming to an end. There was no effort to get things wrapped up when Biden was president. It was just keep giving them more money, keep giving them more weapons, keep giving them more of what they need. But there never was any sort of identified end result. It was just keep fighting. So, fact. The invasion began under Obama. Obama did nothing. It stopped when Trump was president, and then it resumed when Biden was president. And this is where we are today. And Trump is the only president that has worked towards potentially ending this thing. Now, that is all reality, but in the minds of a leftist, Trump somehow is the bad guy. Trump somehow is the guy that is taking a knee to Putin. If Trump, as Moran describes it, that Trump always shows his true colors around Putin, he sells out America and our allies. Well, what did Obama do? What did Biden do? It is the illustration of how with the left, of course, Trump bad, so just by default. But at the same time, when you look at the people that he sees as really standing up to Putin, those are the guys who let Putin do what he wanted. That is the upside down world that gets crafted by these people on the left. And when you have somebody like Moran, who worked for ABC, and now that he is no longer employed there, feels liberated to give his true feelings, it gives you a real idea of why it is that the media is so screwed up in this country. That people as detached from reality as that, crafting the news narrative, crafting the stories that shape the worldview of so many Americans that go to them for what they think is straight up news. Got weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today, and it's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight we'll see a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers, and then sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Wednesday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
Talking about the Biden policies with Putin, there was a gem that I remembered well before the anemic response to Putin's threat at the time. It was clear that he was planning on invading Ukraine. The Biden administration stance was to say don't. We see how well that worked out. Prior to that, you may recall that there was some sort of cyber attack that took place in the United States, and I want to say it was dealing with an electrical grid somewhere up on the East Coast. And there was a meeting with Putin that Biden met with the dictator Putin, and afterwards, talking to the press, Biden revealed some of what he claimed he relayed to Putin.
Another area we spent a great deal of time on was cyber and cybersecurity. I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period, by cyber or any other means. I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities, 16 defined as critical infrastructure under U.S. policy, from the energy sector to our water systems.
Now, I've always remembered this because it was, to me, a real defining moment, even perhaps more so than the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal in the mind of Putin. Because you instead of a president of the United States saying, I told him, if you touch I don't care what it is in the United States. It could be the most irrelevant to our national security. It could be irrelevant to our society as a whole. But if we find out that you carry out any sort of cyber attack, any institution, anything in the United States, we're going to have real trouble. Instead of that, you had the president of the United States declaring, well, I told him which ones not to. I gave him a list of a few that if you would not touch these, then, we'll probably be okay. It just seemed like such an absurd position to take that when you're talking about cybersecurity, that you essentially are giving somebody that you see as a strategic enemy to the United States that wouldn't mind doing us some harm, a list of areas and sites that he can attack. Because by default, if you're saying here's a list of 16 infrastructure, scenarios in which these are absolutely hands-off, don't do it, then by default you're saying that if you hit something else that's not on the list, then you're not going to be in that much trouble with us. And it was such a, to me, bizarre stance and a bizarre position to take, as opposed to, with dealing with Afghanistan, for example, Trump telling the Taliban, I don't care who it is, you touch one hair on the head of one U.S. service member from this point on, and you will be absolutely destroyed. And it stopped. And how much of a different approach that Biden had with Putin when it came to doing damage to our national security and just making a list of, well, these are the ones you can't hit. Like, what? How about none of them? And I think oftentimes that gets overlooked as what I believe would be a defining moment for Putin's understanding of the sort of president Joe Biden was going to be, or was. I want to talk now about the continued coverage of the Washington, D.C. safety initiative that has been taken on by President Trump and the left, with a combination of he is a dictator that is trying to have his own personal army that he can just dispatch to black-run cities because he's racist, to also claiming, of course, that there really isn't much of a crime problem. It's gotten so much better. It's so wonderful. This is a discussion that was had on MSNBC over the weekend regarding crime in Washington, D.C.
Concerns me about this. I've been in the last few days since the president has, said I'm going to send troops sending troops in. I've been overhearing in restaurants people just sort of talk about this. And the way they talk about it sends a shiver down my spine. Oh, Washington, I mean, the crime is just so, I mean, I don't feel comfortable at all. And I don't say anything because I don't leap across the table and say, I'm sorry, sir, ma'am, I live in that city. But to me, it just sounds like if the president were to go that extra step and invoke the Insurrection Act, that there are going to be quite a few people who are going to be down with it.
Because they believe his lies of crime in D.C.
So the reason that people of color in particular are worried about crime in D.C. isn't because of the carjackings. It isn't because of the fact that you can't walk through the streets at night safely. It isn't because of the stabbings, the killings. No. It's because Donald Trump is lying to them. Donald Trump just up and decided one day that he was going to pick a city that otherwise didn't really have any sort of crime issue whatsoever and start scaring the people into believing that there's a crime problem there when there really isn't one there after all. That's what we're supposed to believe. That is how the mind of a person on the left that hates Donald Trump operates. But these are also the same people for the longest time felt that the only reason anybody was really concerned about border security wasn't because we were actually concerned, but because Donald Trump was telling us to be concerned about it. And the only reason for a period of time that people were griping about going to the grocery store during the Biden administration wasn't because there was actual inflation. It was because Trump was convincing people that there was inflation. See, in their mind, what they don't recognize is that Trump pays attention to what is impacting people and what is important to people, and then he gets on it. But what the left tells themselves is that it's the other way around. Trump just decides to make up particular issues that he then falsely, by lying to the American people, convinces them that these are real problems, and that's how you end up with a situation like you do in Washington, D.C., where they're just appalled. The one commentator describing it as giving him a chill down his spine to hear people talk about crime in D.C. because it's just not true. There's a posting made by a woman of color, and you should be able to hear her okay. She's in her car. This is a posting that she made on social media. A woman of color in her car at night in Washington, D.C.
I was able to set up red light with my window down. To the city, feeling more safe than I ever felt.
Now, so here is a woman of color in Washington, D.C., who just, you think how quickly this has been turned around, where she feels for the first time safe to have her window down at an intersection at night. And that is something that is noteworthy enough for her to make a posting about it on social media. Now, that did not happen because Donald Trump lied to her and convinced her that crime was there. It's because this is a woman who doesn't even feel safe enough to roll her windows down in her car while at an intersection for fear of a gun being put in her face. And something that to you and I is so, I mean, we don't even think about that sort of thing. I mean, windows down, windows up, it's just all whether it's raining or snowing or is the weather nice. That's what dictates whether we put our windows down. But to be so seized with fear because of crime in the city that you live in, you feel that now you can actually roll down your window, and that is something worthy enough of posting on social media, tells you the reality of what is going on in Washington, D.C. And it also, again, tells us that the left does not care about these people. You look at how quickly and how easily it was to close the border. After years of Democrats claiming that it couldn't be done without Congress passing all of this funding, and the Democrats, of course, they would go back and forth between there's not a problem at the border to, well, there is a problem at the border, but Trump has ordered Congress, the Republicans in Congress, not to give us money and not to pass a law, which is the only way to make it safer. Trump gets in there, no new legislation passed, no law. I mean, just 100% in a week's time, turnaround, shut down. And now in Washington, D.C., we're seeing just after a couple of days, people that are citizens, mostly disproportionately high number of people of color and middle and lower income individuals that feel safer. And it really wasn't that difficult to do, which tells us that people on the left just don't want to do it. They have no interest in these initiatives that make life better. And the real tragedy of it is, and this is the gaslighting again, the people who generally suffer the most are people of color and people that are lower and then middle income. They are the ones who suffer the most. They are the ones who are trapped and can't get out. And they are the ones that the left tells us are perfectly fine, that there is no crime, that it's all just made up in their heads. Meanwhile, Trump, just with the snap of his fingers, is able to turn that environment around to where people are starting to feel safe again. But he's the racist. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Don't forget the importance of planning ahead. Ozarks elder law, this is something that clearly, for whatever reason, it seems to be a movement afoot, looping people into the importance of planning ahead. But like anytime there's a recognition for a need for goods and services, and you get a lot of people on board and they want to offer like the fast and easy, but that's not always the best. And I hear a lot of the national hosts that are talking about going online and just kind of doing it yourself. And I don't recommend that. I recommend, whether it is planning for you eventually passing and whatever assets you may have, and even if it's just all you have is a car that's paid off, but you got family. Who's it going to go to? Or if it is something bigger with hundreds or thousands of acres of land and property that's been in the family generation to generation, or who's going to take care of the special needs person once you're gone? Has that been decided? What about nursing home? How are you going to pay for that? Have you planned for that? So these are all areas in which Ozarks elder law has a high degree of specialty, and I just recommend that be the route you go instead of that real easy sounding download something off the internet, because you just aren't going to get the same level of coverage. There are 10 area locations across the Ozarks, from Springfield, of course, down to Branson, over to Mountain Grove, up to Bolivar, and a lot in between. You can get all of the locations on their site, and the consultation is a courtesy to you. So you aren't going to have to pay in order to find out how much you're going to have to pay in order to get things done. OzarksElderLaw.com. Also, Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. A heat advisory remains in effect for the entire listening area today, and it's going to be a hot one with a high near 98. Tonight, a slight chance of showers, otherwise mostly clear with a low around 74. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers and then sunny and hot with a high near 96. And taking a look at Wednesday, we'll see a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms and then mostly sunny with a high near 91.
There's a story, folks in D.C. already feeling safer, praise Trump for crime crackdown, people feel safe again. And there was, I played the audio earlier of a woman of color, black woman, that had posted on social media just the fact that she felt safe with her car window down at an intersection, enjoying the night air, something that she has not felt safe to do. And in the story, there's a number of cited postings made. One by James Laverty posting on X on Thursday saying, went on a run through D.C. tonight, insane amount of people out doing the same. Cops everywhere, but the vibe was different. People feel safe again. Common sense prevails. Katie Pavlich, who is a journalist and commentator, said first time at Union Station this morning since Trump crime crackdown, and there wasn't a single crazy person screaming, vagrant or person doing drugs. Instead, lots of families visiting D.C. Wonderful. Then there was the TikTok and X video that I mentioned, which the woman of color, and there was a story in the New York Post regarding this, and she said, finally able to chill at a red light with my windows down, not worried about if one of them young blank is coming, riding through the city, feeling more safe than I ever felt. In another post, the woman said, it's, quote, real quiet in the city, real livable, real. I like that, adding that it was due to what she said was Trump's law. And it's just difficult, I think, for a lot of normal people to believe that as a political party you would actively fight against this, and that being the Democrat Party. I think some of it is because there is an assumption that black people are always going to vote for Democrats. It doesn't matter how badly they do things. It doesn't matter how clear it is that what Trump is doing is improving the quality of life of these individuals, that in their minds that they'll always vote for us, and so we can continue to fight against Trump and try and prevent him from making the city safer, in which disproportionately black people are the victims, and we can do that because they're going to vote for us anyway. And there is a sad truth to that, and it is a reality that unfortunately really leaves that segment of the population unrepresented, because the political party that does step up and work in order to, in a meaningful way, improve education by allowing people who live in the poorer parts of a city send their kids to nicer schools through school choice, which is something that disproportionately benefits people of color, and the party that makes it just safe to drive around town, makes it safer to have your windows down. That is the Republican Party, and yet here there's only one party that runs these areas of the country, and it is the Democrat Party. And so, there's just this sense we don't have to worry about making life better for these people because they're always going to vote for us. And generationally, that is the reality of what has been occurring. And there's the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I suspect that when it comes to actually passing meaningful laws and running a city in a way that is actually beneficial to people of color, why would they bother to start doing that now when whatever they have been doing continues to allow them to regain power and there's no political opposition whatsoever? It is unfortunate that the people who are harmed the most by these policies are the ones that reward the elected officials by reelecting them over and over and over again. Now, hopefully, some hearts and minds are going to get changed by seeing not only the actual real results of what Donald Trump is doing, but that the Democrat Party is the party that is doing everything they can to prevent him from doing it. And one of the aspects of this that I think probably is going to, it should anyhow, resonate with every thinking person, is that this really isn't that hard. Much like the border. It isn't because of a lack of understanding how it is to get this stuff done. It's just a lack of getting it done. And what Trump demonstrates is that not only can a border be secure, not only can a city like the District of Columbia be safer than it is, it really can be done very, very quickly with the resources that already exist. There's this interesting parallel that is being argued about the D.C. situation that also existed with the border situation. And that was the claim that there just wasn't enough money, right? This is what Biden was saying, that it was Congress, Republicans in Congress, if only they would pass new legislation, if only they weren't withholding this money that was needed to secure the border. Well, you hear this, which of course turned out to be not true. It wasn't needed. And when Trump got elected president, he proved that it wasn't a funding issue. It was a doing it and getting it done issue. Washington, D.C., One of the arguments that the Democrats are making is that the reason these problems exist is because Congress is holding all this money that the mayor said she needs and that the chief of police said that she needs, and that's where the problem lies. We've heard that before. It was with the border. And much like the border, Trump demonstrated it wasn't a funding issue that was the root of the problem. He is doing the same thing when it comes to making the streets of Washington, D.C. safer, showing that it's not a funding issue. It is an operational issue. Now, they continue to talk about the number of arrests that have occurred, 68 last night, this many the night before. But that in and of itself is not ultimately going to be a deterrent for crime. It is, how do these people get punished? There is an article, a piece in the Federalist titled "Nobody Deserves That. Mom of D.C. Crime Victim Says Nation's Capital Needs Intervention." And her son was an intern and murdered recently in Washington, D.C. And so the article is, her thoughts. You can imagine that something needs to be done in Washington, D.C., and the dismissal of a murder like her son's as no big deal by the left is something that doesn't set well with her. But what I found, there was one sentence in this piece that is a huge part of the problem. And they note that, statistically speaking, between 2018 and 2022, of all of the people arrested for carrying an illegal firearm, in other words, they shouldn't have had it, whether because of their own criminal history or whatever the reason, no permit, only 1.7% actually ended up being sentenced to prison for it. 1.7%. When you know you live in a city and you get caught violating federal gun laws, that there's only a 1.7% chance that you're going to serve any sort of jail time, that is not a deterrent. It also goes to show the absurdity of the argument from the left that we constantly hear, that we need more gun laws. This is one of the things that I think even some relatively reasonable Democrats, I'll use Harold Ford Jr. as an example, talks about, well, the need to get the guns off the street. We need laws to get the guns off. The laws are there. They don't get enforced. In D.C., by the statistics from 2018 to 2022, you literally had over a 97% chance of not going to prison for breaking gun laws. So, in other words, they're pretty much irrelevant. And I suspect the 1.7% went to prison because of, some other crime that was involved, like they actually shot someone and, killed them. It wasn't just illegally carrying the firearm or brandishing it or maybe shooting at someone missing, that, it was just the sort of thing that probably came as part of a plea bargain as they knocked down whatever the crime was, and so they ended up serving some time in prison. But even if that isn't the case, you can't have less than 2% of people held accountable criminally for committing crimes and then expect them to stop committing crimes. Now, of course, we all know culturally there's the whole family component and so forth. Some of these issues are cultural. Some of these issues you cannot fix. But, new laws will not fix them. But what should be the number one priority, first, right out of the gate, and it's what Trump is doing, is to stop the crime as best as possible. And if that means building new prisons, what is it that we can do? What is it that we have the ability to do? And that is to get these people off the street and start holding them accountable. Once you do that, then we can start worrying about root causes, because so often worrying about the root cause is something that takes the form of panels and commissions, and it's just this never-ending, ongoing approach in which taxpayer dollars are spread around, but nothing meaningful is actually done. And again, frankly, because this isn't a problem at a root level that government can fix. It is a culture thing. So government should do what government can. And that is, number one, just start enforcing the laws and holding people accountable when they break them. It really shouldn't be that difficult of a concept to understand. All right, so what do we got going on this week? Pinnaker Honda 2025 model year sell down. The 25 Honda Civic Sports hatchback, as low as $377 a month. That's finance payment, not a lease. That is, you own it. 2025 Honda HR-V LX CVT all-wheel drive, as low as $332 a month. Finance payment, again, not a lease. Rates as low as 0.99% on select models. The new 2025 Honda Ridgeline, and on select certified pre-owned vehicles as well. The 2024 Honda Accord, 0.99% rates as low as that. And don't forget about the Pinnaker Advantage, 20% off oil changes and tire rotations when you purchase your vehicle from Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Well, there was a local news item that is getting a lot of discussion on social media and, of course, in the media. That is one of these situations I was like, well, I guess I didn't know that could happen, but I guess it does. And that is the announcement Central High made on Friday that its varsity football season is going to be canceled. Did you know that that's a thing that happens?
Didn't realize that.
I mean, I guess obvious, but I don't know that I've ever seen that happen before, where they're like just a couple weeks before the season, we go like, you know what, we're just going to cancel this. So the story reads, and this is Becky Gardner put this together for OzarksFirst.com. Central High School announced Friday its varsity football season will be canceled 2 weeks before Missouri's high school football season begins. Athletes and their parents are now calling on the community to support and advocate for the upperclassmen. The team told Ozarks First this decision will not only impact varsity players, but the Bulldog community as a whole, including cheerleaders, kilties, the marching band, parents, and alumni. Julian Baker, one of the varsity players, said, "We were hurt. Our pride kind of just got stripped, and I couldn't really control my emotions too much. It's your own people doing it. It's not like it's a different school. It's your school, your administrators. They took it away from you without even a choice," said David Bittalk, captain of the Central High School football team. Going into his senior year, Bittalk said the announcement felt like a punch to the gut after spending the last 3 months attending morning practice, working, and then going back to a second practice in the evening. Quote, "I sacrificed so much for football just to get it taken away out of the blue, out of nowhere, and without warning. They didn't believe in us," said Baker. "We've been working for months now, through November to the summer, just for them to take it from us 3 days before the school starts. It's really hurtful." Baker said the announcement was devastating and sudden. Quote, "If they wanted to take our season away from us, it could have happened maybe a month ago, 2 weeks ago. It did not have to happen 3 days before school." Bittalk and Baker had football practice at Harrison Stadium earlier today, only this time as junior varsity players. Central's athletic director told the team the season was canceled due to low numbers of upperclassmen and safety concerns, though Baker said that their team has about 10 more players this year than they did last year. Quote, "We were preparing ourselves mentally, physically, and just like our pride. We've been training since November because we knew this was going to happen, all summer long because we knew this was going to happen. And again, they didn't believe in us, and that's your own school that didn't believe in you," he said. He said it's more than just a missed football season. For some players, football is the reason that they come to school. Quote, football was an escape for lots of people because, Central is not the best area. A lot of boys use this as an escape to get anger out or to take a break for something. Even if we don't always win, it's still a high school experience. BitTalk posted about this situation on Facebook. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the name. It's BITOK. Announcing that the players' parents are working on organizing a protest and have released a petition to get the team back. He said parents and players from Marionville to Hillcrest, as well as Central alumni, have shown support. Quote, even if we don't have a varsity season, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep going, because not only are we fighting for ourselves, for our pride, but we're also fighting for our school. We're fighting for the Bulldog community. The Bulldogs will play at the junior varsity level this season. The teams scheduled to play Central will have an open date. As of this article, a petition started by Central's varsity team had received 898 verified signatures within 21 hours. And I think when I checked it, it was a little over 2,000. And so, yeah, that was chalked up to me as that's not something I knew. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Now, the one thing that, and again, social media, people can make whatever claims they want, but consistently I have heard the claim that they have more players on the team this season than they did the last season, and so they're claiming that this rationale does not add up and that it is inconsistent with the facts. So if that is the case, I don't know why you would cancel it, although some have suggested that it's just because the team isn't good and they just didn't, thought, well, we'll just cancel it. I don't know if that's true. I don't follow local high school football throughout the entire area. I kind of follow what happens with Republic, but outside of that, unless the team's playing Republic, not real in the loop on it. So I don't know how much of that is true, but when I just saw it, like, they canceled varsity football. Okay, I guess you can do that. I just never really thought about it. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. I spoke to Josh on Friday, and one of the things that he mentioned was the extreme heat. The heat can lead to blistering on the shingles, which can then lead to lots of leaking. And this typically happens when you have an older roof or a roof that has been improperly installed, which happens more than you think. If it's been a long time since you've had a roof inspection, make sure to reach out to Josh. The roof inspections are free. They do residential and commercial roofing services, and they work with you through that insurance process. Make sure that everything gets covered so you don't have to stress. So whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, or maybe it's simply time for that free roof inspection, the Pyramid team has got you covered. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So you've got Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, claiming that Putin got absolutely everything he wanted out of Trump. Well, first off, there was nothing to be had. There's no agreement yet. But secondly, that is patently not true because I think we all are pretty much on the same page. Putin wants all of Ukraine. And I don't think that's what he's been offered, unless I'm out of the loop. Trump's response, however, which of course, as always, is enjoyable, is to describe Murphy as, quote, very unattractive, both inside and out, stupid, and a lightweight. which, again, it's that simplicity that I think really draws so many people to appreciate Donald Trump's evaluation of certain people. But frankly, it is stupid. And I've heard this on a number of occasions that Putin's going to get whatever he wants. He wants all of Ukraine. And again, not really sure that that's something that's been offered up, nor will it be. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I will chat with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.